Welcome and thanks for joining me on Talk the Walk. I'm Sarah Wong. As neighboring Shenzhen marked the 40th anniversary of its special economic zone status, President Xi Jinping this week hailed the southern city's miraculous economic development and encouraged young people in Hong Kong to move across the border. The trip has been seen as a symbolic tribute to the late Deng Xiaoping's southern tour in 1992, when he pledged China's commitment to opening up and reform. But what does that mean for Hong Kong, an international financial hub that's struggling to recover from economic recession and ongoing social unrest? Let's bring in CPPCC Standing Committee member Anthony Wu. Mr. Wu, thank you very much for joining us. We like to see you here.
Thank you.
Let me start by asking you that, when the Greater Bay Area Initiative was unveiled, a lot of policymakers and analysts portrayed it as a Greater Bay metropolitan Hong Kong region, with Hong Kong at the center. But judging from President Xi's speech on Wednesday, do you think, what's happening here? The tones seem to be changing. Does Beijing favor Shenzhen now over Hong Kong?
I think if you look at the President's speech, I think what he recognizes was in the last 40 years of opening up, Shenzhen played a very important role, so has Hong Kong and Macau. And he looks forward to the next 40 years when Guangdong, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Macau would also play a very important role. So I don't think we need to say, oh, who is more important than whatever. And if you look at the Greater Bay Area paper that was published late last year, I think it is very clear that Hong Kong is right in the center of it. And then also, if you look at the whole Greater Bay Area concept, this is really nice cities in Guangdong and Hong Kong and Macau. And then this is really an ideal situation where you could have one country, well, three systems working together, three customs, three systems, and how do we integrate? And I think Shenzhen being right at the border of Hong Kong would be very important for Hong Kong to work with Shenzhen to develop the Greater Bay Area.
Right, we understand, but a lot of people in Hong Kong here are concerned that what does that put Hong Kong in the future? So what's Hong Kong's strategic advantage compared to Shenzhen, judging from President Xi's speech?
I think Hong Kong always has this very unique role. I think, first of all, it's a one country, two system, and the presidency make it very clear that one country, two system is really a national initiative that we will continue to work on, because this is really a really new concept for the world. And so the one country, two system is here to stay. And then under one country, two system, we always have the advantage of we being the other system, which is different from the mainland. And I think I was at a small group the other day, and one of the questions that was being asked by a consul general was, well, if Hong Kong integrate with the Greater Bay Area, would Hong Kong lose its unique role, because you may be just part of, you may be just any city in the mainland? And then my answer was, no, because we will always be different. We have a different set of law. We are under a common law system, and then our international connection. And how I view all this is really, how do we take advantage of this vast population of close to 90 to 100 million people, and how do we take advantage of using our very unique professionalism, our expertise, and our sort of super connector role, and to further develop? And admittedly, we always pride Hong Kong as a very unique place. We are a very cosmopolitan city. We're the world financial center. But if you look further, we only have a population of 7 million. And when you have a big population behind you, the market is there. And how do we work, take advantage of this huge market using the Greater Bay Area Initiative, using all these new policies that could help us to further develop our market and expand our capacities in the region?
How do you see the Greater Bay Area, the mainland part of the Greater Bay Area, facilitates Hong Kong's development? Because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of things that the mainland counterparts have that Hong Kong doesn't, such as land and maybe their technological advantage and industrial advantage. So how do you see the two parts integrate better? And what does the central government have in place to facilitate that policy?
And if you look at President Xi's speech, it's really giving Shenzhen a lot of really power to sort of try everything new, innovate, and do many things. And if I just use one example, which is easier to explain, is now look, an area that I am more familiar with, the medical or the bio sector. In the past, Hong Kong, we only have a population of 7 million people. And if you have any sort of new drugs or medical devices, it's very difficult to do clinical trial in Hong Kong because we don't have a big enough population. But if you look at the Greater Bay Area, when you have such a big population, we can use our innovation, use our expertise, our international reputation, and use a big population in the Greater Bay Area when we could actually be one of the world's leading clinical trial center. So all this is just a very small example. Education, finance, fintech, healthcare, education. I mean, there are many things that if we could work together and take advantage of the one country, two system, which is really, to me, is really a great concept. It's very difficult for people to sort of comprehend, oh, one country, two system, whatever. But if we actually look right into it, there are plenty of opportunities here for us to expand our capacities and services.
All right. Right. I'd like to move on to the remarks that Chief Executive Carrie Lam made on Tuesday. So during an interview, she said she was not worried about Hong Kong's, Shenzhen's GDP growth outpaces Hong Kong's. And in fact, she's very confident that Hong Kong can be a capital hub with a comprehensive judicial system that's embedded in a common law jurisdiction, which is very different from mainland's jurisdiction. So what's your thought on that? Is she painting a rosy picture for Hong Kong's future?
No, I think she was quite right in saying that. In fact, for example, why should we be concerned about the GDP of Guangdong bigger than Hong Kong? Because now, for example, Shenzhen have 20 million people. We only have 7. Shenzhen has a much bigger area, and we have a very small area. So if you look at total GDP for Shenzhen to surpass Hong Kong, it is only natural. But if you look at the GDP per capita, we are still very much ahead of Shenzhen. And I think the beauty of this is really how do we use the Shenzhen's big population, the big GDP, and how do we use our expertise in really taking advantage of this huge economy in this part of the mainland, and then to develop further. So I know a lot of people are criticizing about Carrie Lam's comment, but I take a different view. I mean, it is a fact that Shenzhen's GDP has bypassed Hong Kong. But again, its population is a geographical area which is bigger than Hong Kong, so it's just really only natural that they surpass Hong Kong. But if you have a very rich neighbor who could really help you with technology, with everything, and if we could find synergy to work together, I think we could all benefit.
Right. Let's circle back to the note that Carrie Lam made on the judicial system, because a lot of business groups and policymakers, they came out and expressed concern over the national security law that Beijing imposed and the chief executive supports. So in your opinion, do you think further integration of Hong Kong to the mainland will strengthen Hong Kong's position as an international financial hub, or actually weaken it, like the West has predicted, because they were concerned about deteriorating the judicial independence of Hong Kong under the imposition of national security law? What do you think?
I think whatever I say, people may think I'm biased, but I think if we just let this run for a couple of years, and I think the result will tell. The national security law, I think, is very important for Hong Kong. I talked to a lot of MNCs and the chief executive, and they feel that they like to do business in a place that the political scene is stable and is safe. And if you look at what happened in Hong Kong in the second half of last year, I think a lot of sort of international businessmen are very worried about coming to Hong Kong now that the national security law has been enacted. And I'm hoping that we are now going back to what we are used to, a very law-abiding society. And I'm sure that time will tell that national security law would actually do good for Hong Kong. And I am very confident that the Beijing government or the Hong Kong government will not abuse this.
So are you still confident that Hong Kong has the potential and advantage to be an international legal center of the Greater Bay Area?
I think so. I think people. I think we have hear a lot of criticism about, this is really affecting the legal independence and whatever. But if you look at the whole legal system in Hong Kong, the judicial system is very, very independent. We talk about the separation of power between executive, legislative, and the judiciary. If you look at the basic law, there are very clear definition of the three sort of divisions to do. A lot of interaction. But if you look out, cast our mind back to pre-1997, judges can sit on legislature. So what are we talking about? I think the most important thing for Hong Kong is the independence of the judiciary, which to me is just very, very independent. Nobody can actually tell the judge, you have to charge this person something, because it is very independent. No one would dare to tell the judge or influence the judge or the jury to do something. So I think this is something that we are very proud of, and we should still continue to be very proud of.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we all hope here. Now, that seems like a great place to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to delve deeper into the Greater Bay Area and Hong Kong's role in it. Stay tuned.